Guys, happy Wednesday. You guys are going to be continuing doing something similar to yesterday. We're going to read two chapters, and then you guys will have questions on Socrative. After that, you guys will continue working on your posters. Okay? All right, chapter 22. It rained the first 2 weeks of April, and Luke was in a tizzy, wondering when he would ever get to see Jen again. Finally, the ground dried out, and Dad headed out to the fields to plow. Luke raced to Jen's house. "Oh, good," she greeted him. "You can get the advanced battle plans. I was afraid we were just going to have to pick you up Thursday night and fill you in then." Luke carefully slid the door shut behind him and straightened the blinds so he and Jen would be totally hidden. Then he turned to face her. "What are you talking about?" he asked, but he knew. His heart began to thump harder than it had in his rush through the backyards. So obviously he's nervous. "The rally, of course," Jen said impatiently. "Everything's set. I'm taking one of my parents' cars and picking up 3 other kids on the way. But I made sure there'd be room for you. You'll feel lucky. Lots of kids are going to walk. We're all meeting at the president's house at 6 a.m. Luke clutched the cords to the blinds. "Do you know how to drive?" he asked. "Well enough," she flashed a wicked grin. "My brothers told me how. Come on." She waved him over to the couch. He sank into it while Jen perched on the edge. "What if the population police stop you before you get to the Capitol?" he asked. "Us, you mean? You're going too, remember? Don't worry, nobody's going to stop us." She giggled. "I checked the national employee staffing schedules through the computer. Let's just say several of the population police got unexpected days off." "You mean you changed their schedules? You can do that?" Jen nodded, a wicked gleam in her eye. "Took me a whole month to figure it out, but you are now looking at an accomplished hacker." Dimly, Luke realized why Jen had seemed so relaxed and happy on his last several visits. They'd been vacations for her, breaks from the intense work on her plans for the rally. He looked closer and saw the fatigue in her eyes. Fatigue is tiredness. She looked like a younger version of Mom after a 12-hour shift in the chicken factory, or Dad after a long day of baling hay. But there was something more in her expression. His parents had never looked so feverishly giddy. "What if somebody finds out what you did and changes it back?" Jen shook her head. "They won't. I was very selective. I coordinated everybody's travel plans and only eliminated the police who had to be eliminated. Aren't you excited? We're going to be free after all these years." She leaned down and she pulled a sheaf of papers out from under the couch. "Best hiding place in the world. The maid's too lazy to go under here. Now, let's see. I'll pick you up at 10 p.m. and..." Luke was glad she was looking at the papers instead of him. He wouldn't have been able to meet her eyes. Okay, so nobody's going to be caught on the way to the Capitol, but once you're there, at the president's house, somebody is going to call the population police, and then... Luke felt panicky just thinking about this. Jen wasn't phased. "So what?" she asked. "I don't care who gets called or what. Heck, I may call the population police myself. They're not going to do anything to a crowd of 1,000, especially not when lots of us are related to government officials. We'll make them listen to us. We're a revolution." Luke looked away. "But your friends, you were mad at them, but because they weren't into it. What if they don't show up?" "What do you mean?" Jen's voice was fierce. Luke could barely speak for the panic welling inside of him. "In that chat room, they were making jokes. Carlos, Shaw, and the others. You said they weren't taking it seriously." "Oh, that was a long time ago. They're all on board. They're psyched. Why, Carlos is my lieutenant in all of this. You wouldn't believe how much he's helped. So, okay, 10 o'clock, and then it's 8 hours to the Capitol, and..." She consulted her papers again. "What kind of sign do you want to carry? I deserve a life, or end the population law now, or this one I can find in an old book. Give me liberty, or give me a death." Luke tried to imagine what Jen seemed to be taking for granted. He could get in the car. He'd sat in the pickup in the barn. A car wasn't much different. For 8 hours, that would be all he had to do, sit. Not that difficult. Except that panic would be coursing through him for the entire 8 hours because of where the car was going. And to get out in public at the president's house and carry a sign? His imagination failed. He broke out into a cold sweat. So obviously he's not enjoying this. "Jen, he started. "Yeah?" Jen waited. The silence between them seemed to be growing like a balloon. Luke struggled to speak. And this is an example of a simile here. "I can't go." Jen gaped at him. I can't," he said again weakly. Jen shook her head briskly. "Yes, you can," she said. "I know you're scared. Who isn't? But this is important. Do you want to hide all your life? Don't you want to change history?" Luke made a stab at humor. "Isn't there another choice?" Jen didn't laugh. She sprang from the couch. "Another choice? Another choice?" She paced, then jerked back to face Luke. "Sure. You can be a coward and hope somebody else changes the world for you. You can hide up in that attic of yours until somebody knocks at the door and says, 'Oh, yeah, they freed the hit, and you want to come out?' Is that what you want?" Luke didn't give an answer. "You gotta come, Luke, or you'll hate yourself the rest of your life. When you don't have to hide anymore, even years from now, there'll always be some small part of you whispering, 'I don't deserve this. I didn't fight for it. I'm not worth it.' And you are, Luke. You are. You're smart, funny, nice. You should have been living a life instead of being buried alive in that house of yours. Maybe I just don't mind hiding as much as you, Luke whispered. Jen faced him squarely, her gaze unwavering. Yeah, you do. You hate walls as much as I do, maybe even more. Have you listened to yourself? Every time you talk about how you used to go outdoors and work in the garden or something, you glow. You're alive. Even if you don't want anything else, don't you want to be able to go back outside? What Luke wanted was to get away from Jen because she was right. Everything she said was right. But that couldn't mean he had to go. He huddled deeper into the couch. I'm not brave like you, he said. Jen grabbed his shoulders and peered into his eyes. Oh, yeah? You dared to come over here, didn't you? And here's something. Why are you always the one who makes the trip? Do you ever think of that? If I'm so much braver, how come I'm not risking my life to see you? There were 1,000 answers to that. Because I found you first, because your house is safer than mine, because I need you more than you need me, you've got your computer and all your chat room friends, you go places. Luke squirmed away. My dad hangs around my house too much, he said. It's safer this way. I'm just protecting you. Jen backed up. Thanks for the chivalry, she said bitterly. I've got enough people protecting me. If you care so much, why don't you help me get free? You say you won't come to the rally for yourself. Do it for me. That's all I ever ask of you. Luke winced. When she put things that way, how could he not go, except she couldn't? You're crazy, he said. I can't go. Neither should you. It's dangerous. Jen flashed him a look of pure disgust. You can leave now, she said coldly. I don't have time for you. Luke could feel the ice in her words. He stood up. But go, Jen said. Luke stumbled towards the door. He stopped by the blinds and he turned around. Jen, can't you understand? I do want it to work. I hope. Hope doesn't mean anything, Jen snapped. Action's the only thing that counts. Luke backed out the door. He stood on the Talbots' patio, blinking in the sunlight, breathing in the smell of fresh air and danger. Then he turned and ran home. Chapter 23. Luke let the kitchen door slam behind him. He didn't care. He was so mad his eyes blurred. The nerve of her saying, I don't have time for you. Who do you think she was? He tramped up the stairs. She'd always thought she was better than him just because she was a baron, showing off her soda and her potato chips and her fancy computer. So what? Didn't mean she was special. Just because her parents had lots of money, it wasn't like he'd earned anything. What's she anyway? She's just some dumb old girl. He wished he'd never had gone over there. All she did was brag, 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 and show off. That's all this rally was, anyhow, showing off. Hey, look, I'm a third child, and I can go to the president's house, and nobody's going to hurt me. He hoped somebody shot her. That would show her. Luke stopped in the middle of pulling the attic door shut behind him. No, he took that back. He didn't want anybody to shoot her. His knees went weak, and he had to sit down on the stairs. All of his anger suddenly turned to fear. What if somebody did shoot her? He remembered the sign she'd asked if he wanted to carry. Give me liberty or give me death. Was she serious? Did she expect to? He stopped himself from thinking to the rest. What if she never came back? He should go, if only to protect Jen, but he couldn't. Luke buried his face in his hands, trying to hide from his own thoughts. Mother found him there, hours later, still crouched on the stairs. Luke, were you getting impatient, waiting for me to get home? Did you have a nice day? Luke stared at her as though she were a vision from another life. She started, ready to spill everything. He couldn't hold it all in. Mother felt his forehead. Are you sick? You're so pale. I worry about you, Luke, all day long. But then I remind myself you're safe here at home, out of harm's way. She gave him a weary smile and ruffled his hair. Luke swallowed hard and recovered himself. What was he thinking? He couldn't tell her anyone about Jen. He couldn't betray her. I'm fine, he lied. I just haven't been out in the sun for a while. Remember, not that I'm complaining, of course, he added hastily. Hiding again. All right, so first thing you're going to do is you're going to go into Socrative. You have some questions here too. Remember, the code is 2037AEC7. As soon as you are finished with that, you're going to continue working on your poster. Okay? Remember, you have to have a poster for each kid, Jen and Luke, and you have to follow this guide. All right. I will see you guys mañana.